studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Tibor Kalman is here. He's one of America's most influential designers. A native of Budapest, Hungary, he revolutionized the design world with the magazine's Colors and Interview. From Talking Heads to the Museum of Modern Art, from MTV to New York's 42nd Street Development Project, his firm, M & Company, has created images that are both controversial and innovative. His accomplishments are recognized in a new collection of essays entitled Tibor, Perverse Optimist. I am pleased to have him here tonight to talk about an extraordinary career and an extraordinary and unique and innovative approach to design. Welcome. I say at the beginning of this, he has come to be a friend of mine, and I am honored to have him at this table. Welcome.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Charlie.
Tibor as a name, where did that come from?
Well, just about everybody in Budapest was named Tibor, and there were no Charlies as far as that I had ever heard of.
Well, Tibor's a great name. Actually, I like Tibor rather than... I mean, Tibor sounds like a name that... Tibor the Magnificent, you know?
That's good. That would be good, yeah.
You never think of Charlie the Magnificent.
Well, I don't know, Charlie. Charlie the Magnificent.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound so bad.
No, it's okay. The designer, is that how you would most like to be identified?
Well, the things that link my projects together, I think, are design. Although some of my projects, I have worked as an editor. In some projects, I've worked sort of as an architectural consultant. Sometimes I've worked like an industrial designer. Probably mostly because I just have such a short attention span. And I'm too embarrassed to take.
Does that hinder your work?
I think it improves it because it keeps me from getting too involved in too many projects. It keeps me from doing too much of the same thing. And it keeps me at that kind of point of wonderment that you are at when you take on something you've never tried before. And I love that. I mean, I love that sort of feeling of being a 10-year-old kid who's in charge, actually.
Yeah. And you can do anything.
Like both of those
It's
parts.
a blank canvas. The idea that the canvas is blank and you can start anywhere and go anywhere. Yeah,
and it would be nice. It's better if you can have people around you who know what they're doing. Yeah. But you got to be in charge of the people. I mean, to have the naive person in charge of the people that really know what they're doing, I think is much better than to have the naive person work their way up the scale, because the person that doesn't know that much will do something fresh.
I think that's true. That's true in a lot of ways. I mean, most people will say about their life, while they have done something magnificent, let's say it's climbing a big, tall mountain, they'll say, if I knew how difficult it was, I might not have attempted it.
Exactly,
you know?
Same thing.
Same thing. You find out, if you look back and say, God, but in the midst of it, as you're going upstream...
Especially at the beginning of it. It's really
That's
easy.
Certainly the way. Yeah. I mean, same feeling.
Those foothills are really gentle.
You got to have a certain sense of, I don't know what's at the end of the tunnel, but let's head out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, isn't that why we're here?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Do you think of yourself as a purist in design?
Well, in some sense. I mean, there's some of the modern stuff that I don't like, some of the computery kind of stuff. But I think that also has a lot to do with my age, because most of the designers doing that work are pretty young, and I'm 49. So it may have to do with my age, but I sort of consider myself, I would like to consider myself as a part of the modernist movement as opposed to the postmodernist movement. And I guess these days that might even be retro or something, which is a term that I would really like not to associate with my work. But I still believe in modernism, in design, in architecture.
I know what modernism means in architecture. What does it mean in design?
It means kind of like very simple, clear work that was all about, I mean, like a lot of modernism was about rejecting the notion of decoration and making stuff that's very, very simple and clear. Sort of like if you think about the work of this designer named Paul Rand, who always did like very simple things and did them for like IBM and all kinds of big corporations that were very clean and very beautiful, but basically about a clear, simple message. or even if you look at the work of the title designer Saul Bass,
Yes.
that stuff was, I believe, was modernist.
Let me tell you some other words they use to describe you.
Thanks.
All right, well, here goes.
Okay.
Provocateur. You like that?
Yeah.
Why does it fit?
It fits because it's sort of how I started my life, you know, in 1968. In 1967, I had the good fortune to go to New York University, and then that's when everything kind of started there. I guess it started earlier elsewhere, but that's when the student movement began, that's when the hippie movement began, that's when the yippie movement began.
Is that what shaped your political philosophy the most?
Yes, I think so. I still have most of those ideals, although I guess I live in a very bourgeois way. So, you know, if I had it...
Can I tell you how many people from the 60s live in a bourgeois way?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess if I had enough money, I'd be a limousine liberal.
But you are a liberal. I mean, politically, you've always been there.
I think I'm, I guess, to the left of liberals.
Wherever that is.
Yeah. Well,
is it socialism? Is it progressivism? Is it
I really would
radicalism? Is it?
I really would like it if this country, I know this will freak everybody out, but just take it with a grain of salt. I mean, if we kind of examine the word, I'd really like it if this country became the first socialist country in the world. I mean, I know that other countries have tried, but I'm just admitting my political philosophy, and I know that we're not in the McCarthy era anymore.
Well, nobody's going to attack you for saying that.
I think
my friend Cornel West feels the same way.
Right. I mean, I think something like healthcare, it's just disgusting that we can't get that together. I mean, that we can't get together a system of having healthcare that's not controlled by the government, because they don't do a very good job at it. And I think that's the bad part of socialism, is that governments are just not very good at managing the process of socialism, or the dispensation of the money that they're supposed to collect. I guess I'm one of those people that wants higher taxes and would be willing to pay them.
In order to have more welfare, more benefits for everybody spread around, regardless of need. I mean, regardless of anything, and just applied on the basis of need.
I mean, I have these doctor friends in Boston who are always talking about that they don't want the government to do the administration of, they don't want socialized medicine. And they don't want the system that exists today, because they think that it really leaves a lot of people out in the cold and gives people bad care. Because right now the idea that a whole medical establishment, the whole HMO establishment seems to be to stop spending money and make a profit.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are private companies.
Yeah, and so, to their own, a lot of doctors are fed up with it. I mean, because it's ripped away what they believe they came to do as physicians.
Right. I mean, I completely sympathize with that. But I think people getting lousy health care, because essentially what's happening, I think, is that the whole thing is getting kind of bid down. So how cheaply can you provide health care? And the cheaper you provide it, the more money we'll make, to the point that I believe that doctors are getting bonuses for taking on more patients, and therefore are having to spend less time with them, you know, when they're a member of some HMO. Now, the balanced solution that I've heard from these friends in Boston, who have a website and everything that maybe they'll put up under my face if they're taping this show.
Maybe.
That would be nice. These are a group of doctors and nurses in Boston who put together some kind of an ad hoc committee to defend health care. And their point of view is that the government should not, as I just said, the government should not be in control of this health care, but it should be private companies, but that are not allowed to make a profit, non-profit companies.
All right, I'm going to move away from this debate only because there's so much stuff I want to talk to you about rather than to engaging more. The other word applied to you, other than provocateur, is contrarian. You like that too?
I like it on certain days. I like it if I could call myself that instead, but
yes.
I use contraryism in every part of my life. I mean, in design, like in design, I'm always trying to turn things upside down and see if they just look any better.
Yeah.
That was a trick. So that's sort of, I guess, a formal kind of contrarianism. And then I mean, I'm quite willing to break chops, you know, pretty much anywhere I find them.
In order to create something new.
Yeah, in order to, I mean, to break other people's chops about what they're doing also. You know, I have a lot of criticisms of this show that I'd like to discuss with you afterwards.
Well, that's fine. We'll hear them. No, let's do it during the show. This book is called Perverse Optimist. Does that fit?
I think so.
Why? What's perverse?
What's perverse is that so few people believe the things I believe. Like that thing about like medicine, or that, you know, I believe that there's enough money around to feed everybody. It's just distributed badly. I believe we have enough resources, and I kind of believe in the goodness of people. I kind of believe that Americans are much, much more liberal than they're given credit for, and that they're manipulated into these things like tax cuts that were really manipulated by Reagan, and that's why they elected Clinton, and in the end.
Here's my only, I want to, in the area of manipulation, everybody is in that game.
Me too. Yeah. No, I mean all designers
it's
are
not
in that
just
game.
the people who want tax cuts. It's everybody with an opinion, or with some effort to try to persuade people to do something different is in the game of manipulation, I think.
Yes. No, as I said, I'm in the game of manipulation because I'm trying to manipulate various people, including people in my office, including my children. They never let me. They're too smart. And I think that designers in general are manipulators, because they're not that different from like ad agencies.
But is that what design is about? In other words, design is to manipulate you to think that what is here is interesting, attractive, compelling, and therefore you want to do either look at it, buy it, be motivated to do something.
Yes, I mean usually buy it.
Buy it.
That's 99% of design is about selling stuff. And I believe that in order to sell stuff, you can't really tell the truth. You have to like exaggerate, lie, whatever. And graphic designers have kind of become the liars for corporations, just in the way that I think accountants are liars, and I think that lawyers are liars. I guess corporate accountants and
who do we exclude that are not liars?
I guess we all lie,
Yeah.
including our president. He just didn't get away with it this time. Those nasty Republicanos. They are nasty, these guys.
Well, it's tough going for the president right now.
I mean, from the first day it was tough going. I mean, everybody seemed like they were pissed off about Bush losing, and he didn't even get out of that the gays in the military thing, and that was 2 weeks into it.
Yeah. What attracts you to design then? You know, if you know it's manipulation, if you know it's about spin, if you know it's about sell, what is it that makes you want to be a proud designer?
Right now?
Yeah.
Because I can turn it all around the other direction. I can design and manipulate and spin people politically in the direction that I want. Yeah. That's what I like about design. I mean, I know how to make advertising. I know how to make labels. So therefore, I can take those skills that I have of manipulating people over a label for a spaghetti sauce, and I can take those skills and apply them to the idea of I'm sorry, I blew it.
That's okay.
You
can take the label like spaghetti, and do what?
Well, I can get people to buy it first of all, and if I can get them to buy it, then I can get them to buy something else like health care or donations to poor nations. I can use those skills towards any end I want. If I have some support from a foundation or something, I can use those skills to get kids not to buy Gatorade, but to drink water, not to buy expensive sneakers, but to buy any old sneakers and just practice harder, you know, because I can uncommercialize any commercial skill I have, decommercialize, anti-commercialize, whatever.
I want to look at some stuff that you've done, just so that the audience at home knows your work. Let me show you this book. This is the book that we were talking about, which is called Tibor subtitled The Perverse Optimist, edited by Peter Hall and Michael Beirut and others, in which there's a whole lot of stuff that you have done in here, and it's all about you. We all have some things on slides. Take a look at this. Barnes & Noble, a long-time association between you and Lynn Riggio. Yeah. You went to work for Riggio when he had a little campus bookstore, and you went in to what? To do what?
I went in first to alphabetize books because it was much more fun than working in some bar. Yeah. And then I found out that it was no fun at all.
Alphabetizing books was not a great
horrendous.
Thrill.
And I kind of tried to talk him into letting me do other stuff like windows.
Well, didn't something happen? The window guy left, or it was a woman, I don't know. And you said, I can do that. Yeah. And he said...
Of course I said I could do that. That's why I'm a perverse optimist.
And you did it.
I did it.
And so pretty soon you're doing all the windows.
Yeah. Right. And I was doing all the windows, and then he kept expanding like crazy and buying stuff up, and I worked for him for 11 years. It didn't get boring.
Yeah. That's a long-time friendship.
Yeah. And we've been friends. We've been friends since, you know. We sort of respect the distance between us. We're sort of like ex-lovers or something like that. But, you know, I mean, we have a lot of distance between us, less now than before. But I went to Italy for a few years. I sort of made my career, and so on. And I think he did the same thing. Made his career. A little larger than mine.
Well, we'll come back to a lot of those names. You went to Italy for what, 1990, something like that?
I went to Italy from 1993 to 1995.
And then you came back, and you were disillusioned with the Italian experience.
Well, I was only disillusioned with the way I was in Rome, which I think was a mistake. I always thought it had a lot of energy, but it turns out that those people were just hurrying to lunch. And what I think happened is that Rome was a really, really great place to live and a really, really horrible place to work.
A great place to live and a horrible place to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you wanted to come back to New York, and you missed New York, and New York was a great place to work.
Yeah.
I
actually...
Go ahead.
To be honest with you, I had to come back because I got sick there.
Oh, you got sick there. Yeah. Let's talk about, in a moment, talk about the illness in a sense. Take a look at this. This is Barnes & Noble, the retail bag. This is the graphic design for the bags, for the bookstore shopping bag. Take a look at, I mean, we can see that. Now, tell me you know this by heart.
Certainly makes exciting television, doesn't it?
What is that? I mean, what's the idea?
What is that?
Why is that the design? Tell me why that's design genius.
I don't, did we say it's design genius?
Well, I was just thought.
I didn't see the label on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Charlie, I mean, I was a real amateur designer at this point. Yeah. And I took a book plate from an old book and photographed it and put Barnes & Noble's terrible typography now, I think, on it. And they used it for a really long time because maybe we didn't have the time to redesign it.
Because everything was moving so fast.
But now they have.
So there's a new book there.
Yeah.
All right.
They got all kinds
Now, you picked these out for us, didn't you? It was my understanding you picked the things we're going to look
slides,
at?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, you can't quarrel with what we're showing.
Oh, no, I'm not quarreling. All right. Don't worry. Contrarian provocateur.
Okay, run number 2 here, slide 2. This is an icon postcard for the restaurant Florent, printed on the crude paperboard used to stiffen shirts. I use that all the time. Actually.
Yeah. Do you take those out of your shirts every day?
I do, all the time. You know, I use them for lots of things.
We got them somewhere else, I'm sure. But this is that same kind of cardboard. And what we decided, I mean, he had to put these basic statements on it, which is like the restaurant and where it is and all that. And so we started looking for icons that we could put with that because we didn't have very much money. It was one-color printing. Yeah. So we thought maybe a nice icon for, this wasn't me, it was a couple of us working at the studio. Right. Restaurant Florent would have, you know, to say that would be a chair for a restaurant, a truck for Gansevoort Street, which at the time had millions and millions of meat trucks on it, and we couldn't think of an icon for New York, so we used the gun. No, we
so
did
we
think
used the
of
gun?
Yeah, and then they had a telephone, we had the bell.
Chair.
It was open 24 hours, so we had the globe. Right. And then I forget what the last thing is.
Coffee cup?
That's a coffee cup, yeah.
Yeah, coffee cup, globe, truck, gun, chair, bell.
Yeah, so pretty easy, you know, to do, especially if you're getting it from the Yellow Pages, and you didn't have much money.
There's a note here that says the design came out of the idea that a French client with no money and a sense of humor was entitled to some grandeur.
Right.
All right, the next one is the China Grill. This is a restaurant here in New York. Right. East meets West logo. The logo symbolizes the East meets West theme, with the chopsticks representing the East and the coat of arms representing the West.
And that's pretty simple.
Huh?
And the fleur-de-lis.
In the
Well, they
fleur-de-lis.
had European, I guess they had Asian ingredients prepared in a European way.
Right.
That's what they told us, and that's why it was called China Grill. And we said, we can keep going with that.
We can keep with it.
Yeah. And coat of arms, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, here's a big time one coming up next. Talking Heads. The cover is a combination of a high-tech and primitive look. Faces look like masks, and the print is inverted and running together.
Right.
Who came to you about this? How'd you get this job?
I got this job by telling David Byrne in a meeting that we had just set up socially by friends that we would work for free on their record cover. This was 1981 or so.
So David liked that idea.
Yeah, he did. He did. So we worked for months and months and months and months. And finally, one day, two members of the group, Chris and Tina, walked in with those face images that they had created at MIT.
Right.
And they were just like cursor marks on the faces. And this was around the time of the Iranian crisis.
So you got the planes.
So we had the planes. And this actually is part of the poster, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then we turned the A's upside down just to do something.
Yeah, inverted it and run it, makes it run together.
It was kind of like a accident to turn the A's upside down at
Now,
first.
would this be on one of your list of favorite things?
Yeah, this project was really fun to do, especially when it was so early on in our careers, and we didn't get that many fun things to do. We were just mostly trying to make money, to be honest.
Our career, meaning your firm.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a 10-1-4 watch. This is obviously, I said in the introduction, part of a MoMA's collection, the Museum of Modern Art here in New York, and it shows 3 random hours to time the day. It expresses ironic modernism.
Well, yeah, I think that's reasonably fair. What we were trying to do in this watch is we figured that if there were no numbers on some watches, that we could have anti-numbers on other watches.
Anti-numbers?
Or numbers that are in the right place, but there aren't enough of them.
Yes, right.
Everybody always said, well, you didn't finish this watch. And but it was actually the idea of my wife, who's a very good collaborator of mine.
Yeah. How long have you two been married?
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
And M and Company is her. I mean,
It's named after her.
It's named after her.
I used to not be able to admit it for some insane, stupid reason that I had.
You wouldn't admit it?
Yeah.
People would say, where does M and Company come from?
Well,
What would you say?
If a bank said it,
Yeah.
I would say, oh, it means marketing and communications, of course. And if a band said it, then I would say it's a mystery, or I would make some joke like it stands for my mother, or money, or whatever. But the truth of the fact is that Myra's nickname is M.
Yes. Her nickname is M, so you just said M and Company.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing, and then we'll go to something else. This is the Interview magazine covers. Covers are meant to show the extreme side of famous personalities. How many of these have you done?
Maybe a dozen
A
altogether.
dozen. Look at that. Showing the extreme side of, there's Liza there, there is that Susan Sarandon on the right?
Yes.
And others.
I guess that's Johnny Rotten,
Johnny Rotten. Yeah.
or who used to be Johnny Rotten. I guess he's still Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
And then that's Laura Dern.
That's
I
it,
think
Laura
that
Dern. Boy, a good-looking woman.
Yeah. And then the Liza one is just kind of an extreme.
Yeah. Well, that's her. That's almost the,
Yeah. But you see, Laura Dern is supposed to be looking at her name
Right.
down on the dock there. And then I just put all the type around Johnny Rotten's head.
Right.
Just kind of like radiating.
Right.
And Liza, you couldn't really do much with, you know?
Yeah.
Because there were, I don't know, there were demands and stuff like that.
Let's talk about the illness. You went to, what?
Let's talk about the illness,
No.
Charlie. No, it's okay.
No, but you know, all your friends know that you've been sick.
Yeah.
What happened?
Somehow along my life somewhere, my doctor said that I ran into, and I don't remember this incident or this tendency, that I ran into some, I got this disease called lymphoma, which is a cancer. And I always wondered, like, where the hell did I pick this up? You know, did I sleep with someone? How did I get this? And they always say that it has something to do with exposure to fertilizer.
Do they say that?
Yeah. Believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
That's the best clue, that's the only consistent kind of thing that any of them said. When I've always asked, like, where's this from? And maybe nobody knows.
And they said exposure to fertilizer.
Yeah.
And you said the only time I ever saw any fertilizer was in Italy?
there. I mean, I saw it, but I didn't sit in it. You know, we crossed the border. The only time I can think of that I was on a farm was that when we crossed the border from Hungary into Austria,
Right.
when we were leaving by foot.
Let me go back. This is part of a very interesting history. Your parents were, your father, you had everything as a child. You had servants.
Yeah.
You
Well,
had great teachers.
And this is communism.
This is communism. How was that?
Well,
We'll come back to the illness, but go ahead.
it was great.
I mean, you like that. You like communism.
Well, we lived very well.
No wonder you like communism. Socialism.
Isn't that how it's going to be, that we all live very well? We lived very well because my father was an engineer, and that's kind of at the peak of the communist idea about how, I'm sorry.
What we appreciate, engineers sort of at the peak of the communist hierarchy because it's about people who, in a sense, make things work.
Yeah. So it was the most, engineering was the most important profession in Hungary. And my father was a very great young engineer. And he ran all the food factories, all the factories that produced food in any way, like milk and stuff like that, in Hungary, processed milk. And so he had a very cushy job. They gave him a car and a driver. And in our house, there was, from somewhere, there was a cook and a woman who took care of me as a child.
Right. You were the only child?
At the time.
At the time.
At the beginning. Then my brother was born 3 years after I was.
But when you were 6, you fled Hungary.
Right. It was coincidentally 1956 when there was that revolution in Hungary.
Right.
And my parents like traded in all their furniture and stuff like that.
Yeah. You were living in Budapest?
Yeah.
So they traded all the furniture. You had a lot
all
of
the furniture, the paintings, you know, all the stuff that they had, to a guy that took us on a train.
Right.
And had us dropped right near the border, but inside of Hungary, and said he would come with this group of people, and then he did the same shtick with 25 other people or 30 other people, and and he dropped us off the train, and he was supposed to come with us, but he didn't. He just left on the train.
Right.
So what we did is that the whole group started to walk kind of in between the sentry lights.
Right.
On the border between, because we thought the sentry lights is where the Russians were.
On the border between Austria and Hungary.
Austria and Hungary, yeah. So, and there was probably felt like there was about 3 miles to walk. That's what I objectively think it is right now. And we got separated from the rest of the people because my parents had 2 children that were, one of whom was cranky, and I was the excited one. I was saying, like, let's go, this is good.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I got exposed to stuff, because we slept in a haystack and then went into Austria and waited about a week. And then, maybe I'm going too deep into this.
No, it's an interesting story because it's
Right.
part of your life, and that's what we're after.
And then we had this amazing experience, as I understand it, because you always get this stuff secondhand when you're young, from my parents, that we walked into this big room after about a week in the refugee camp in Austria. We walked into this big, gigantic room that looks that I remember sort of like a high school gymnasium.
Right.
And all around the room there were flags.
Right.
And below the flags there were tables. And what it was really about was that you could go to any table. These are all the countries that are accepting Hungarian refugees. And there were like a bunch of countries, like 25 or 30 countries. I'm sure that Italy was there. I'm sure that Sweden was there. And the United States, of course, was there too. And they had the biggest crowd at their table, of course. Everybody wanted to go to America. And the way I understood it from my parents, and maybe I got it wrong, was that if you had a postgraduate degree and you could prove it, you know, that you brought your...
They wanted you.
They wanted you.
Yeah, and you came to America, and all of a sudden, I think you've said this, that all of a sudden America looked bright and different and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I was 7 years old. I mean, this stuff was amazing that there were taxis and, you know, we were in a...
Yellow taxis.
We were in a camp again in America for a while. We were released on January 1st, 1957.
Yeah, and then you made your way to New York City.
Yeah, because my mother had her mother there.
Right.
So she came and got us at the camp, and we went to New York City, and it was the best thing I ever saw in my life.
Just the whole everything.
I didn't even know what it was, but I loved it, you know?
The illness, so you've got lymphoma, right?
Yeah, now I do, yeah.
Yeah, living with lymphoma.
Yeah.
Does it change, as an artist, perceptions to live with an illness like that? Does it change acuity, any of that?
Okay. It doesn't change acuity. It makes me much more, I don't want to waste any time.
Yeah.
That's all. Because I really love what I do, and I don't even think about traveling around the world or doing any of that kind of stuff. I really want to keep on doing what I'm trying to do, which is to kind of get lost in new projects as often as possible.
Say, look, I'm just going to go straight ahead.
Yeah.
Until I breathe my last breath, whenever that might come, however far away it is or however
well, you know
close
why?
it is.
Because working makes me feel much better physically than sitting at home.
Yeah.
And I'm not, even though I'd love to travel around the world, I don't feel like I want to give the time. It's kind of a pain, and I have to take lots of medicines with me.
Yeah.
And they're always worried that they're going to have to give me something, or chemo or something like that. So I don't want to do that either, you know. What I'd rather do is just keep on doing what I'm doing. But I'd like to not waste time, you know? Just not waste time.
Just continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
When did you make it? You know, in some sense of, when was it that
few
Tibor
times.
said, you know, I got something special to give, and I'm giving it. You know, in other words, you
Getting
made
it or
people,
giving it?
No, well, whatever, creating it is what I
Yeah.
mean. In other words, as a designer, what was the breakout for you, where people took notice and said, boy's good?
Yeah. I guess to a certain audience, it was when I worked on the Talking Head stuff with my studio. I guess to a different audience, it was when I started making money, which was in the kind of the mid-'80s, when it was pretty easy for designers to make money. Maybe that was from my parents. And I think to myself, it was sort of, there were a couple of projects that I thought were really great. You know,
Which were they?
Like the Talking Heads video, maybe.
Right.
This used to be real estate, now it's only fields and trees. Where is the time now? It's nothing but flowers.
It was a project that I felt that I could work on for the rest of my life, because it was endlessly fascinating to me how you can combine words and images on film. I think that subject is such a fascinating subject.
To marry words and images on film.
Like movie titles, for instance, is a good example of that. And I've gotten some chances to do that, but never my fill of it.
Making movie titles.
Yeah. Or making pieces of, I guess, music videos or whatever else I could make in which typography and film were very much involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I even heard of it. I always wanted to do a project where I could make like maybe a half-an-hour movie that would just have type on it, and it wouldn't have, and somehow I'd have like this really great music. This was my vision anyway. Somehow I'd have this really.
So no, just music and type and no voice.
Yeah, and just have the type kind of be something that you read, but that expresses itself. That reads in a narrative, you know, that the character of the way you put the type on the screen and the way the type moves, the way it goes on and off the screen, is indicative of the story that's being told. It has a narrative quality. You know, just like type does, you know, like when type even on a bank commercial, sort of like explodes, they'd say, "We have a special deal, exploding," you know, type. And then, or like when it's on sale, they say, "Ooh, it's on sale," and they move the number up and down, or they flash it on and off. 20% off at Macy's. Yeah. But all those expressions are part of a vocabulary of incredible possibilities and incredible depths. And some people have done really great film titles. I mean, I've never seen it, but I've always been told that Seven was a fantastic. I'm going to rent it tonight.
Oh, you rent it tonight?
Yeah,
I was going to say, I'll get this for you, but you're going to rent it tonight and see the titles?
Yeah, just to see the title. Do you remember the titles at all?
I don't. That
Everybody-
doesn't mean I may have come in late.
Yeah. Everybody in the graphic design community thinks they're like
They're
the
great.
best titles.
Well, see, I'm
anyway.
going to rent it myself
Right.
just to go see it. I want to come back to, so the illness is an everyday battle here.
Well, you know, not every day, but almost, once a month I got to do something about it.
Sure.
I got to take pills and stuff.
But you keep plowing ahead and you keep trying to think of new ideas. I got to get you to, what I want you to do for me is to design a new opening for this program.
Could it move?
Yes.
Could it have type?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to.
Will you do this?
Yeah.
All right,
I
deal.
promise.
We'll have a deal. If I can afford it, we'll do it.
Yeah, you can afford it.
I know.
Or I can afford to give it to you. I mean,
No,
if there's a difference,
I don't
we'll
want you to
split
give it to me. Okay, well, we'll
right.
figure it out. This is the Everybody Billboard 42nd Street Development Project.
Right.
Okay, take a look at this. Does that capture your attention or not?
That's a biggie.
Has chairs attached to it. The idea is that the street is you and you are the street. Is that it?
Well,
Everybody.
This was, I worked in 2 different parts of this project. This is an art project, actually, that was done under the auspices of Creative Time.
Oh, sure.
And the rest of the project that I worked on was a much more different project. It was about how to develop the street itself. But this is the art project, and what we try to do here is to send the message that we wanted this street belongs to everybody. And we put chairs there so that people could kind of hang out if they want to. But we were very nasty about it because we put the chairs so that your toes would be about 3 inches off the ground. So you kind of have to trust it. And none of them fell down.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's great. Okay, the next one is colors. This is a whole different aspect of your life. Take a look at this. This is the magazine that you went over to Italy to edit from Benetton, right? This is one of the most censored pictures in photographic history.
Right.
Some have rejected it as ugly, others as promoting abortion. What say you, Mr. Kalman?
It's a beautiful picture. But, I didn't take it. It was not even my idea. It was the idea of this guy, Oliviero Toscani, at Benetton, who was my boss on the magazine, but who didn't boss me around very much, thank God. That's the only way I could really work.
Okay, the next one here is Queen Elizabeth. Tell me about that.
We did an issue on race, and I wanted us to try to create images that would somehow separate people in their race, because you could look at the people differently in different races. So what we tried to do was to try to figure out a way to change the races of people. Because what you're supposed to do when you look at this picture is, how do you feel about Queen Elizabeth now? Do you feel any differently about her?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there would be better music in Buckingham Palace? Or that, that she would dress better, even a little bit better? And these were very hard in those days to do these retouching things.
Now, is that what they wanted you to do, to come over there and shake things up, or did they want to make a political statement? What did they want?
They wanted an international magazine that young people would like, that was sort of politically advanced a little bit, like their advertising was.
Right.
I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do an issue about racism. I wanted to do an issue about shopping.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of like kind of try to radicalize everybody about everything. This really annoyed people in England, and there was a big outrage that actually showed, I think, the racism of the daily newspapers over there. That they would have headlines that would use the word ma'am, or like that Benetton. There had always been Benetton, of course, not knowing who we were, but they would always say things like, Benetton paints the Queen black. Really like revealing their own, I think, their own racism. And they put this issue in Daily Mail on this picture on the front page, and it was sort of in a surprising way, it got more publicity than some of the photographs that Toscani took.
Well, I'm sure, because that's what always happens. Once it becomes controversial, then people...
I didn't expect it, but it was really a huge outcry in England. There was one man that went around in Rolls Royce painting the fronts of Benetton stores black. I mean, but that's what, that's how he thought he would. Look, if you paint our Queen black,
we'll paint your store black.
Hello, I will.
Hello.
I will
I'm
paint
here to paint your store black.
I'm here to paint you black. It was like as if. So what he was saying is, I guess that we did a bad thing to the Queen.
Yes, and it wasn't that at all. You were just trying to say, show you how perception is and reaction is to color.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Let me move on, because there is Spike Lee as a white man, correct?
Yeah.
So therefore,
blue eyes.
Blue eyes.
How would he look? How would that make you? Does he look weaker? Does he look nerdier? Does he look skinnier? Does he look smarter? What is your personal perception of it? Is what we were after.
Just react is what you're after. What do you think?
Provocateur.
Yeah, provocateur. Now, what happened with Tibetan?
Well, we had different plans. I was very happy to bring the magazine to New York. They wanted me to bring the magazine to Paris.
Yes.
Because they said they should travel around the world, which was a lovely, lovely, wonderful idea when I was healthy.
Yeah.
But once I got
sick.
I got sick.
You didn't want to travel in Paris.
I kept thinking, like, I'm going to have to talk to French doctors, or then we have to fly to New York to talk to American doctors every few weeks or every few days. So it seemed like it would be hard.
Back to design now. We'll take a look at some more stuff here. But have you evolved as a designer? I mean, are you at a certain point in the evolution today?
Well, I've learned. I knew nothing at the beginning when I did those windows at SBX.
Right. SBX is a forerunner of Barnes & Noble, for those who don't know.
So I learned every year, I learned more. And I became a better designer, I believe, yeah. Now I'm sort of an anti-designer. I guess I'm an undesigner.
You're the designer who hates design?
No, it's not that. I hate what design is, and
which is what? Selling and spinning
and
creating falsehoods, etc.
Yeah. I mean, look, part of it is boredom. I mean, I've done record covers, I've done CD covers, and I really don't want to do anymore. And these days,
what do you want to do?
Everything else that I haven't done. I mean, I have some ideas. I have this secret museum project.
Yeah, tell me about that. I don't know too much about that.
Yeah, it's a secret. That's why you don't know too much. Now you want me to tell you? No.
Yes, I do. No. You don't want to tell me?
I really don't want to tell you.
Okay.
I want to do a museum that's really different, that's really funny, has a sense. I can tell you this about it.
All right.
I'd like to do a museum that's funny,
yeah,
that doesn't have a permanent collection, because it wouldn't be an art museum. It would be a museum about the world. So
what's going to be in the museum?
Anything from bags of dirt from different countries.
Without fertilizer.
Right, hopefully. Or in plastic bags or something. To shoes. You know, I mean, I just want to
ordinary things.
Yeah.
That you will
ennoble. A museum of the ordinary. But don't you think the ordinary is sometimes fascinating?
Of course, but art's full of that now, isn't it?
Art is full of that?
Yeah, the ordinary. Urinals, sort of.
But that's not ordinary. That's for art. That's extraordinary.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's for art. I mean, that's about changing the context of things,
right?
And that does radicalize things in a way. And
you're primarily self-taught.
Completely. I went to school in '68. There were all the professors like walked out immediately. Or like left the classroom, or were on the streets, or were giving all A's. That's when I got on the dean's list.
That's right. You could get on the dean's list because they gave everybody an A.
Right. That was the only semester I got on the dean's list.
I never went to any of those schools. What's the significance of vernacular?
I mean, to me, I've always loved things looking not the way they should.
Yeah.
And like when I walk into a hardware store, and I see an egg slicer with a really kind of ugly label, I find that more interesting than walking into a supermarket and seeing a really slickly designed spaghetti sauce label.
What's the difference in you and Andy Warhol?
Well, Warhol, maybe in some ways nothing on this point. Although we did have different glass frames, I guess.
Yes.
And nobody shot me yet. Well. So anyway, I mean, I think
But my question was the significance of vernacular.
Well, the significance of vernacular, I mean, I think I still come from a design background. And I sort of embrace the things that have not been designed yet.
Right.
I guess it's that anti-design quality. I mean, I think that there was a certain point where I was trying to pursue beauty.
Right.
And I guess I got sick of beauty, and then I got very interested in what is mundane and ordinary and things like that. And then even more interested in like what a shack looks like in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Or what the architecture of a shack in the Caribbean is. Or like what it looks like when a guy, also in the Caribbean, because I've been there a few times, takes his little gas station made out of cinder blocks and paints the word gas, really big with a roller. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great sign for a gas station. Gas, you know, just painted on the side of the wall. And that kind, I love that. Maybe because I am a designer, I've seen so many nice things that I like this stuff that's called vernacular. Whether it's architecture, like in a shack, or whether it's graphics, like the gas sign that I just described. I think that even though I think the mobile logo is a really beautiful modernist logo, done by the same people who did the MoMA logo,
Right.
the Museum of Modern Art,
Right.
I just find, I mean, I know that those are beautiful, but I also love this other thing about the gas station, you know, of just some guy, and that's what vernacular is, just some person having to do something that they have plenty of time to do and that they can't afford to have done by someone else. And sometimes that work comes out very beautiful because they spend a lot of time on it. Like there's certain sorts of packages that you find in the supermarket that you feel have been designed by the cousin of the, you know, or that were commissioned by the chairman of the company 25 years ago when they just didn't know any better about focus groups and all that other boring stuff about package design right now. Now packages are what people expect them to be, I guess. And the thing about vernacular is that there were no expectations.
Why did you dissolve the firm in 1991?
Because I really wanted to, I had done a few issues of Colors in New York. I really loved it. I had 30 people working for me, which is stupid. There were 15 people on Colors and 15 people in the company, including the people that made and sold the watches and all those things that we used to make and that we still do make. And Toscani came to me and said, look, I know you really love to do colors.
Right.
Why don't you close this stupid studio and come with me and I'll send you to Rome. I'll give you a big fat salary.
This is the guy's head of Benetton, right?
Yeah. No, this is the guy that's the creative director of
Creative
Benetton.
director, okay. Oliviero.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Because
he
they
said,
let him do anything.
Yeah, so he said, come to Rome.
He
Pack, sell the company,
he
come
said,
to Rome.
Yeah.
Or pack it up.
Yeah. And he said, why do you need this studio? I mean, so come to Rome, I'll give you a salary, I'll give you enough money to get a nice apartment,
Yeah.
bring your family, and we'll make, in fact, he left it to me. In fact, what he should have said, the truth would have been, you'll have to make Colors in Rome. And I thought, God, what a great deal. I called Myra.
Yeah.
She said yes on the phone.
Yeah.
Didn't take very long.
Well, she's smart.
We had to
it seemed like a great thing to do at the time.
Yeah, no, it was. It was the most romantic thing we ever did. You know, and I guess the mistake that I made is that I had been to Rome as a tourist and seen these, well, I guess I said this before,
Yes.
seen these people rushing, thinking, oh.
Computers, technology. You mentioned the fact that a lot of designs on computers today and it has a sameness to it, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you don't think much of it?
Well, I think it's used in the wrong way, especially by designers. I think that the way you use a computer is that you come up with a really good idea, you kind of figure it out on paper, and then you go to the computer. Because the problem with the computer, if you start drawing on it or you start trying to do your design on it right away, is that a computer only knows how to say yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives a very precise, I mean, it's a very good tool for making a straight line, but it's not a good tool if you're trying to make a crooked line and you're not sure where it's supposed to go. The thing I like about a pencil and paper is when you draw something, especially the way I draw it, you can't really tell what it is. And it's kind of open to interpretation. But in a computer, even what I did in a computer, which would often be using a word program, would be A, B, C, D, E, you know, and it's too precise. It's just too precise a tool for general design or for creativity, in my opinion. And I always can see the kind of the tracks of the computer in some of the bad work that I see. I see it's bad because they started on a computer, and you could see all the stair steps or whatever that they did with the typography.
There must be some happy medium on that, though.
I think the happy medium is what I've just described, but
Okay.
I guess no one else thinks so. And maybe it's just, I mean, I used to rubber cement mechanicals, so inspect type and do things antique kind of, that are now thought to be antique and that are not taught anymore. And so maybe it's a condition of my age. I just can't see the computer properly, maybe. Maybe I just don't understand that aesthetic.
All right.
So it might be that. I mean, maybe all these kids who are doing work that I think is stupid and ambiguous and ugly,
Maybe they know
really,
something.
maybe they know what's going on.
All right, let's get to a couple more slides. One is, this is Ronald Reagan as the AIDS martyr. This is a photo which is part of the issue on AIDS.
Yeah.
It expresses irony since Ray is an AIDS martyr that could have been, but wasn't. The notion was that, I guess, Reagan reached out and was, what's the point?
Well, my point was that you only really understood AIDS if a friend of yours had it. So I tried to find someone that was familiar to a lot of people around the world and give them AIDS.
Yeah.
You know, with
And then
retouching.
you'd understand it because it
Then
touched somebody you knew.
You'd actually say, oh, I mean, oh, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
And then now you understand it's a little more horrible than you think. And along with this, we wrote a kind of a fake obituary for Reagan, in which we said he was such a wonderful guy. He always talked about AIDS. He got everybody, he got the schools to figure out condoms.
Right.
He made the government agencies all available.
This is what you
for
said in the
AIDS
obituary. This is
education,
sort of
yeah.
an obituary you wish you could have written.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And
not
the
because you
track-
wanted him dead, but because you wanted to create the notion of things that he hadn't done.
Right. And so, and then we sort of ended it like that the real tragedy is that of all the people that did so much to fight AIDS, he died of it. They did not like this in California, in the California White House. Or,
I'm sure they did.
yeah. In the California state press release, they said that Benetton was just trying to use, Reagan's image to sell sweaters.
Next slide, the chairman. This is the book of Rolf Fellbaum, right? The chairman of the Swiss furniture company, which is Vitra, correct?
Right. Not only is he the chairman, he is a chairman.
Yeah, he's a chairman.
I guess this is a pretty weird picture for a book, but nevertheless, it's a really fat book, and it's a little book.
Yeah.
And we thought that since he was the chairman of that company, that we could make a book about him with pictures that we could also call Chairman, because he collects and makes chairs. And so once we were brave enough to call it Chairman, we made it look like the Little Red Book of Chairman Mao.
How big is it?
It's about the size of a. I'm sorry. It's about 6 inches high, and about 4 inches wide, and about 3 inches thick.
All right, let's take a look at the last slide we have. This is your wife's portrait of you. Take a look at this. And it shows what are, in her view, some of the things you don't know, all of us, don't know about you. Her message on the portrait is, he's the coolest, he's the kookiest, he's the smartest cat in town.
Well, she's my wife. What she's supposed to say in my book. No, this is, but don't you think it looks just like me?
Oh, you're handsome.
She's such a realistic illustrator, isn't she? Well, I took off this vest.
Thank you, Tibor. Pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Thanks very much.
Very much,
Okay,
my
that's
friend.
great.
Great to see you.
Thanks. Thanks, Charlie.
Tibor Kalman, provocateur, optimist,
And
contrarian, and the coolest cat in town. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.